now it is my great pleasure to introduce our first panel, Tapping Into Talent, Global Businesses Working in Partnership to Hire Disabled Talent. And I would like to welcome onto the virtual stage some panelists who are joining us from right around the world. So firstly, Lara Partridge joining us from Hong Kong, Vineeta Raghuwanshi, who's joining us from India, Rendar Mahardhika Putra, who's joining us from Indonesia, and Danielle Meadows, who is joining us from Texas at the ungodly hour of something like 5:15 a.m., I think. I wish I looked that good at 5:15, Danielle. So I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourselves, just who you are, who you work for, and your job title, before we get into the detail of the questions. So Lara, can I come to you first?
Of course. Thanks very much. And good morning, good evening. Lara Partridge from HSBC. And my day job is to look after talent acquisition for all of Asia Pacific, which is 19 markets for us in Asia.
Just the 19. Okay, that must keep you quite busy. Thank you very much, Lara. And next, Vineeta.
Hi, everybody. This is Vineeta. I'm joining from India. Very good morning to all of you. I'm from EY. We are a very strong workforce of 40,000 people, and really proud to say that we've been driving the DEI agenda for the last a decade, more than a decade now, and really excited to connect with all of you and share what we've been doing in this journey, and also, of course, learning from all of you.
Thank you so much, Vineeta. And I know I've had a bit of a sneak preview before about some of the things that EY has been doing from that project earlier this year. So I'm excited about that. Can I next come to Rendar?
Hello, everyone. I'm Rendar Mahardhika Putra, or you can call me Reno. I'm the head of contact center from Coca-Cola Europacific Partners Indonesia. And I really, blessed with this opportunity to share with all of you guys regarding what we are already making progress in our company, especially for people with disability. And I also looking forward to learn from every one of you in this panel, and hopefully this could bring another big progress, especially for us as a communities to leverage our support to people with disability in a company. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would you prefer that I call you Reno?
Yes, just call me Reno.
Okay, Reno it is. And can I then come to Danielle?
Sure. Good morning, good evening. My day job at JPMorgan is a global head for our business solutions teams, also known as BEST. And what that is a focus on hiring individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities or neurodivergent talent into customized roles within the firm. So I'm looking forward to learning more from everybody and kind of showcasing what we're doing at JPMorgan.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Danielle. And as some of you know, that before I worked at BDF, I've been here nearly 7 years, I can't believe. I spent 13 years at a charity working with people with learning disabilities and autism. So this is great. This is really close to my heart. So I know that you're all involved in some really interesting recruitment initiatives in a variety of different countries, and in many cases working in partnership with third-party agencies and NGOs. So I'm going to ask each of you to tell us briefly about the projects that you are working on. And I will come first to you, Reno. Can we hear Reno?
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, yeah. So let's start. Okay. So hello everyone again. I am Rendar Mahardhika Putra, but you can call me Reno. So I currently serve as the head of contact center for Coca-Cola Europacific Partners Indonesia. And discussing about people with disability or PWD is a subject very close to my heart, like you, because it is touch also my personal life, because my father, who unexpectedly lost his sight at the age of 43 due to brain cancer and passed away at 45. What's a PWD he was. And those 3 years were challenging because I start to learn to support and interact with a visually impaired family member, right? So, but through this experience, I learned a lot in valuable lessons about engaging with people with disability. So back to CCEP, our Coca-Cola Europacific Partners Indonesia, our commitment to inclusivity is not only a compliance measure. Our dedication comes from the core values in our inclusions, diversity and equity, or IDNE framework. So we have a framework here, IDNE framework, which stands on 4 pillars. First, multi-generations, and then gender diversity, culture, and disability. So we are deeply invested in cultivating a workforce that reflects these values. In line with this, CCEP has set a global objective to ensure that 10% of its workforce is represented by PWD by 2023. So while we are also guided by Indonesian's law number 8 of 2016, which specifies hiring quotas for PWD, our primary drive comes from within, from our genuine desire to create a diverse and inclusive workspace. And then to further promote inclusivity, we've conducted training for our existing employees to enhance their understanding about PWD and encourage meaningful interactions, and also fostering a supportive and respectful workplace. So our initial challenge was sourcing qualified PWD candidates. Yeah, that's most, I think, most challenging part, because it's not easy to find them. And thankfully, the CCEP Indonesia Contact Center is affiliated with the Indonesia Contact Center Association, or ICCA, and ICCA collaborates with the PWD government agency, which offers training for PWD to become skilled contact center agents. And then leveraging these connections, we reached out to an ICCA colleague who taught at the center. The result, in 2021, we recruited 2 talented individuals with physical disabilities, initially as apprentices. A year later, they transitioned to direct contract positions. And again, we add more because we want to add more PWD in our workplace. So we will welcome again another 5 PWD in 2022, bringing our total 70 members with all minor physical disabilities. I think that's short story from CCEP Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renaud. And actually getting to 70 people is really impressive. And as you alluded to, we might come back to, actually, even if there is that appetite and willingness to recruit inclusively, actually finding a pipeline of talent is also a big issue, that whole kind of education piece. We may come back to that. But before we do, I will come to Danielle. Danielle joining us from Texas. And before I ask you to share what you're doing, I think we have a video about the project you've been involved with at JPMorgan Chase. So let's have a look at that first, shall we?
JPMorgan Chase's Business Solutions team is our firm-wide expansion of diversity and inclusion to include neurodivergent colleagues from the IDD, or intellectually and developmentally disabled community.
My role is part of Best Squad. I've been working here for almost 2 months. Never thought I'd be in a corporate office job like this in my whole entire life.
BEST is a program that allows individuals from the IDD spectrum to be able to come into the workforce and utilize their skill sets and their capabilities that is aligning directly to the tasks that we have within the firm.
I basically just get on the computer, make sure addresses are correct for different businesses across the world.
I do the matching addresses and locations, and I also do research.
We are working with our sourcing partners, and we do skills assessment, see if we have the right talent, we find the right jobs that fit those skills and match them together, and then we do 60-day apprenticeship, kind of like our interview period.
The value proposition is identifying parts of processes, a component of a process where that task could be performed better by a person from the IDD community than their neurotypical colleagues. And you could think iterative, repetitive for a neurotypical colleague, what we identify as a poor motivational fit. We have empirical data that shows our guys will knock this kind of highly iterative workout with very, very few errors.
Working on the computer?
Yeah.
You just do you work pretty fast on the computer?
Yeah.
Our guys are better motivation for that work, so we've had no attrition, very, very few absences, but most importantly, it's better quality work.
I just focus on the job at hand. I try the best of my ability, and I'm happy to be here.
That's a fabulous video. Thank you for sharing that, Danielle. Before I resist the temptation to ask you loads of questions and to be really enthusiastic, do you want to share a bit more around that project and how it came about, perhaps?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So the video that you actually see, if you notice, there's some differences in the office. There's not a lot of people. This was all during the pandemic. And so what happened during the pandemic is my boss and I, Brian Gill, who you saw in the video, we started out by bringing people into the office, and they were in our supported employment model. They sat with their businesses, we customized roles, we found business problems, and then we found people and talent who could resolve those business problems. When COVID happened, everybody was sent home. I could not bring people into the office at that time because we didn't know what was next. So during this time, it allowed me to reimagine, how can I still do this? We're working at home. Why can't I still build this team remotely? I met with a couple students that were going to NUL Pace University in Chicago, and that is an IDD certificate program at their university. They showed us a virtual tour of their campus. We didn't know what they were going to show us, but they basically just presented to us like what their experiences is on campus and how they're doing this remotely now. From there, I decided, let's do a remote pilot. And we ended up hiring those individuals who you see in the video, who were doing, they're actually training AI technology. That is all the data and address and client information that they were referring to. Once we did that, it was a successful pilot, and we've been expanding ever since then. The team has grown from 4 people, that team specifically, to upwards of 14. And it's been something that we couldn't do without our community partners, our nonprofits, our universities, to help us source that talent and to help us evolve through these years to ensure that we're providing, the right adjustments and accommodations that everyone needs, and that we are creating a platform for individuals to actually come in, gain employment, sustainable employment, earn very great wages, and be able to get to self-determination. So it's been a pleasure. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about it. But yes, so we've definitely made some strides, and I'm looking forward to talking more about it with everyone.
That's fabulous, Danielle. And for people listening, when you talk about the supported employment model, I'm assuming you mean like place and train, so people learning the job on the job.
That is absolutely right. Learning the job on the job with job coaching, assistance, all of that. Yeah. Brilliant. And I really love the point about accuracy and compliance. And see, I can't resist it. Going back to, this is a UK example from my previous life, but there was a social enterprise that was staffed entirely by people with learning disabilities, compiling financial information for a major insurer, who I won't name. And they'd had terrible trouble with compliance with the Financial Conduct Authority because they had to be packed exactly right and all the papers included in exactly the right order. And the normal teams they got to do it kept failing the standard and they kept getting fined. This team of people with learning disabilities cared so much about it, they achieved compliance consistently. So I love that. It's fabulous. And you really need to get the AI training right, don't you? Or heaven knows what will happen. And I think that's the subject of our next panel a bit later on. But anyway, let me go off on one of my hobby horses. Vineeta, can I come to you next to share what you're doing in India?
Sure, thanks, Diane. For us at EY India, disability inclusion has been one of the core focus areas as part of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness agenda. For us, shifting the focus from disability to ability that has been the intention. We want all forms of disabilities or all forms of abilities to be included at the workplace. We really believe that, people are effectively disabled by two things. One is the environment in which we operate, and second is by the perception of people with whom we work. And we really want to break these two aspects and really create that environment for our people wherein they really feel included, belonged, and they have the fair and equal opportunities to perform and thrive in their career. So now in this direction, what we've been doing is we have a very focused approach, and it's around attraction, retention, and development of people with disability. And the agenda is not run like a talent agenda in the organization. It is completely owned, driven, sponsored by the leadership team. So much so that we have a core group of partners who have come together and they own the agenda. They connect quarterly, they discuss the strategy, they discuss the challenges, they discuss the pain points, where we really need to invest more. And that kind of commitment coming in from the leadership team makes a lot of difference. In fact, we took our commitment to the next level this year, and we've launched something called Pledge One, wherein each leader in the organization has pledged to hire at least one person with disability or from the underprivileged background in their team in the year. Now, there may be many leaders who've already hired, but they're still committed to hire more. But somebody who's not had that opportunity, they're really looking at creating the opportunities to hire people with disability in the teams. So that's the kind of commitment which is coming from leadership team, and that's really moving the needle further. Of course, we've come a long way. But there's still a lot to be done. I do have two success stories I would like to share with the group today. I remember this is like 6 years back when we were hiring people in something called cognitive cybersecurity team in the southern part of India. We hired 5 people who had speech and hearing impairment. Now, everybody was excited to welcome them. Everybody was excited to onboard them and work with them, but there were challenges also. So when they saw these team members struggling in terms of communication, we really looked at the processes. We really looked at what changes we need to bring in. We introduced technology, wherein the words in the meeting gets translated into, text, and that can be then read by the people who have speech and hearing impairment. So a lot of changes, accommodations, adjustments we brought into the onboarding process, we brought into the existing processes so that the information is accessible real time. All these 5 people have been doing amazingly well. In fact, we hired more in that team, and they've been working at par with anybody else in the organization. Second example, which I'm extremely proud of, is which happened 2 years back when we were creating a neurodiversity center of excellence in Mumbai. And we hired 5 people on the autism spectrum. Now, hiring those people, of course, was a different experience because we kind of looked at entire process from hiring till onboarding, till making sure that they are confident and they're absolutely performing at par with anybody else in the team. So wherein a normal hiring would take, say, a week's time, hiring these people took us good 3 months' time. Wherein a normal onboarding would take, say, a month-long process, we made sure there's a 3-month-long customized process for them. And somebody was there to shadow them throughout the year. So a lot of such examples we've been able to create through this work, but a lot of it is possible because, as I said, the leadership team and also our people who have come forward as allies, as the force to really drive this agenda, and committing to demonstrate certain actions in behaviors and in reality on a day-to-day basis is really what making the difference for us. So in a nutshell, this is what has been the journey so far. Over back to you, Diane.
Thank you very much, Vineeta. I mean, loads of brilliant things there for us to pick up on. But just for now, I think the theme of leadership and the fact that you have got leaders who are owning that and committing to recruit themselves is fantastic. And right at the very beginning of the conference, I mentioned our first global report we created, launched in 2020, actually. And I think 91% of people said that getting strong leadership and buy-in was the single most important factor in actually making change. So that's great to hear. I can see some questions are coming in on Slido as well, so that is wonderful. But before we go to those, I have some other questions, and I want to come to Lara. You are joining us from Hong Kong. Can you tell us a bit about what HSBC is doing there?
I can. I thought I would build a little bit on what Carol Ann shared at the top of the call. And because I do recruitment for a day job, the examples that she gave earlier about the team in our service centre in India, and she mentioned the step-up programs, the upskilling pre-employment. She talked about the incredible workplace adjustments work they're doing. I was chatting to the team just yesterday, and they've given incredible thought to an onboarding program. And I thought, just really quickly, I'd double click into two of the secrets that I think have made the work they do so successful. The first one is that they ask themselves a much bigger and more ambitious question. So rather than just going down the individual programmatic route, they said, what needs to be true for us to be able to say we're an inclusive hiring organisation? And by looking in detail at the answers to those questions, it showed up a series of initiatives, and it allowed them to prioritise those things that would make the biggest difference. And hence you have all these incredible programs that they've put together to create an entire experience. The other thing they've done that I think is incredibly important to the topic of recruitment is they haven't just looked at initiatives for focused hiring or programs alone, but they've looked at the ways in which to unlock BAU recruitment, where in large corporate organisations, we have so many opportunities every day out to the market. And so what they've done there is try and say, where can we apply our programmatic practice and our partnerships and make sure the same is true if you were to just click on our careers site and open up. And I think they've provided a real blueprint for a lot of other teams within our organisations and hopefully elsewhere to do really game-changing work at scale.
Thank you very much, Lara. And I think you've touched on something that we are increasingly seeing as important in kind of how does it feel to work here? What is that experience like? What does it feel like as an employee, as a kind of employer brand? And those softer things are so important. And I also really like the fact that you've talked about not just focus programs, which are really important and fantastic, particularly for people who have greater barriers, who might need more complex adjustments, but also remembering there are things you can do as part of your day-to-day business as usual, which so often are just tiny tweaks in terms of adjustments and accommodations, aren't they, that make the difference in someone being able to get a job with you, being able to thrive in that job. So that's a really, really important reminder. I have some more questions, but I can see one I'd like to ask Danielle on the Slido. So question for Danielle, you support the employees brilliantly, but how do you educate the organisation to help with normalising disability inclusion?
I think the thing about JPMorgan and what we do in normalizing, we have an Office of Disability and Inclusion. And that is something that is firm-wide. And so although BEST focuses on intellectual and developmental disabilities and neurodivergent, the entire forum supports all disabilities. And that's something that is just built into our culture. It is something that we talk about in rooms where we say disability, we say what it is, we talk about it. We allow employees to bring their whole self to work, and that is what we're encouraging. So I think with that, along with educating, there's a lot of training, a lot of inclusion training, a lot of just learning that there are different people in the workplace, and that is okay. Something that for BEST specifically, anytime I'm bringing on a new colleague or we're joining a new department, training has to happen. And it's more so of awareness. So we make this an open conversation around just disability etiquette and awareness training. And then it allows colleagues to understand that, maybe your colleague that did not say hello this morning is having a bad day. Or maybe that's just not something in their social construct that they know to say hello or good morning back if you say it to them. We're all different, and this training allows individuals to kind of understand that about one another and be a little bit more patient. And that's allowed for us to normalize the inclusion across the firm. We not only focus on disability, we also have other centers of excellence around marginalized communities. And that's something that's just embedded into our culture.
Thank you, Danielle. And you make such a good point about the kind of frames of reference that we all bring, and if we're not careful to acknowledge them. So if we all assume that everyone else we work with kind of knows the air quotes unwritten rules and the kind of the norm of how we do things there, but actually these are people who haven't worked in that environment before, they don't know that, and you need to take a step back and tell them. I think everyone who's listening to this will have been writing down on their wish list, I'd like an Office of Disability Inclusion, please. So yeah, put that on your Christmas list, or whatever list for whatever festival you celebrate. I think that would be a nice ask. Reno, I could see you nodding during Danielle's reply around kind of culture, and it's obviously taken a lot of work in Indonesia to get 7 people hired. So is there anything that you would like to add around that, around culture?
Yeah, I think it is very impactful to our culture because we are progressing to create an inclusive culture within our company, because we are also has diversity, equity, and inclusion framework in our company that really foster that to become our culture. So align with everyone here that like I said before they come to our office, before they start to work and serve our customer, because they work as contact center agent, right? So at that time, the people and culture team, conduct kind of training to increase the awareness about people with disability and how to make interaction with them when they came to our workplace, because there is very important to create inclusive environment, and then to be able to not see them as a very strange people to come. And the results, I think, is very amazing, because everyone in our office, even our security, really shocked when they first come to our office, because they ride a motorcycle to work, but with modified one, because one they don't have leg and one they don't have hands, but they can do ride a motorcycle, go to the office. And that's really make our people eyes open more about disability, and they also think now that they same to us and they have same capability like us, like a normal people. I think that's a very good progress that we're really proud as a company, yeah, to build new culture.
Thank you, Reno. And culture is something that we come back to again and again and again, and particularly if people haven't been very visible in their communities or in the networks that you operate in, then actually it is learning about different ways that people manage transport and the different ways that people work around to enable them to do their jobs. So that's great to hear. One question which shouldn't need asking, but people watching might be thinking is why, particularly where you have specific initiatives. Why is it important to your organisations to be involved in these projects? So I will come to each of you, and I'll come to Lara first this time.
Sure. And I'm conscious that I'm chatting to a group of people who know a great deal about the topic, and they would be fully aware of the data from the United Nations that says that in the industrialized world, people with disabilities are more likely to be unemployed in the range of 50 to 70% more, and that number skyrockets in developing countries to 80 and 90%. And so I was listening to this podcast this morning. Adam Grant was explaining his new book about hidden potential, and he gave this example about recruitment that I couldn't write down fast enough. And he said recruitment is a means of unlocking a system of opportunity. And I thought, what an incredible link to what we're talking about today. And I think as well that people who do know this space well also know the benefits, and Janie mentioned at the top of the call, all of the gains that organisations make when they can unlock a system of opportunity. And so I think fortune favours the brave here, people who are going to go in and make change and initiate incredible programs like the ones we're hearing about today, because they will have the upside of having incredible people in their organisation, and it will benefit their brand and it will benefit their bottom line.
Thank you, Lara. Very, very well put. And I love that about, I didn't write it down fast enough either, but unlocking potential, because that is what it's about, isn't it? Vineeta, can I come to you? Same question about why. Why is it important to you?
No, I completely agree with what Lara has clearly articulated. If you really look at these studies which are available, Diane, and the numbers are really, really, it will amaze you. Over 1 billion people are estimated to have disability in the world. But when you look at really their representation in the workforce, which is about almost far lower, I can't even really put a percentage there. So there's a lot which we as an organization or we in the corporate world can really do, coming in from a position wherein we can influence, we can create opportunities for people. So why not? That's the first point, because everybody is different. Everybody has different needs, different, irrespective of disability. Like you talk about gender, you talk about LGBT, everybody has different set of needs. Those needs to be met. So why not disability? That's one. Second, in our kind of a sector wherein we are working back with clients very closely, our clients do demand diversity in the room when we are interacting with them, when we are working on the challenges. And if we don't have a substantial representation of people with disability, because they form very important part of the community as well, I think we are somewhere lacking on the business opportunities as well. So that's second. And thirdly, I think, we all as an, so at least Eva, I can talk about, we really believe in equity. So making sure that, whatever we do, it enables everybody to lead to equitable outcomes. So that's really the philosophy we believe in, we live by. And therefore, disability inclusions becomes a very, very critical aspect for us to drive. So in a nutshell, I think a very strong business case for every organization to look at driving disability inclusion in whichever capacity they can. And make sure not just limit it to the organization, also ensure if you can step forward and do something for the community at large, maybe in terms of awareness, maybe in terms of creating employment opportunities, or just educating people on this subject, because a lot of people still don't know a lot of aspects about disability inclusion. So creating awareness, education is also equally important. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think you put it beautifully there. And I think raising awareness of the whole spectrum of disability as well is, as you said, is really important. And even in, our line of work, in talking to people who often in the UK, quite a mature approach to disability inclusion, actually won't think of the breadth of it and won't realise that often such small changes can unlock that potential, and that it really, really doesn't have to be difficult, and it's good for your business as well as being the right thing to do. So anything that Reno or Danielle that you would like to add on the why? I mean, clearly it's really important.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add something. I think what everyone else has said, it was also a part of ours. The numbers don't lie. Ideally, each and every one of us will have a disability at some point in our life. And so when we looked at the business need, diverse teams produce high performing teams. And I think something that has always been important to me, and is something that I take pride in at JPMorgan, is our employee base needs to reflect our customer and client base. And you can't do that if you do not have persons with disabilities included in your employee and colleague base. And so that was something that has driven our message and kind of normalizing, and also just the business outcomes. We literally, the same story that you had, Diane, about the data, that we had mortgage documents, things that have to be correct. We were getting fined, we were not doing well. And when we brought in talent that was motivated and their skills matched that, no errors, the whole team was elevated, everybody was motivated to then do the job that they wanted to do, and the work was being done properly. That literally is the basis for why you need this talent, why we need to diversify our talent pool. And I think the part that you can't measure is that the stories from the family, the stories from the employees who now can buy a car, live on their own, be independent, do everything that we all wanted to do as young adults. those are the things that we can't measure. And that is what makes this is even more right, because everybody deserves an opportunity and a chance. And sometimes that's all a person needs. And so I think that is something that was really important to us, but we just had no idea the impact that it would cause in some of these families, not just the employees, but their family units, and being able to help the household, or just the parents seeing their child be successful when they never thought that would be possible.
That's wonderful. And the stories are what brings it to life, aren't they? And seeing the impact on humans, those around them, and just that independence, that identity, that sense of self. I often think that, you know, one of the things that we first ask when we meet somebody is, what do you do? And for too many people with disabilities, that's still a tough question. And the more that we are enabling people to thrive and be able to proudly answer that, that's got to be a good thing. Reno, did you want to come in on that too, on the why?
Yeah, I think at CCEP, at the heart of it, our commitment comes from, again, CCEP inclusion's diversity, equity philosophy. We truly believe that diversity is our strength, while our objectives are very clear. We want to foster a culture where everyone feels included and valued. And also we want to ensure accountability at every level, be a driver of change by setting the right example. And also the last one is develop a diverse leadership team and future leaders. That's very important. So at CCEP, our ambitions is to create a positive impact and envisions a shared future that benefits everyone. This commitment requires us to reflect the diversity of our products, the communities we serve, and the global market we cater to. We want a workplace where everyone can be themselves, bringing varied thoughts, experiences, and backgrounds to the table. So diversity is more than just a word for us. It's a celebrations of everything that makes us unique, whether it's age, heritage, gender, identity, or any other attributes. So equity means everyone gets the same chances and is treated fairly, while inclusions means that we make sure that everyone feels welcome and important at Coca-Cola Europacific partners, Indonesia especially, no matter where they come from. I think that's the philosophy behind it. Why is it so important for us?
Thank you very much, Reno. And your point around future leaders is also really important, and having role models, that whole thing about you can't be what you can't see. So I can now see lots of questions on Slido. So I will come to one about leadership to start with. Does the panel have any top tips on getting senior buy-in for disability inclusive recruitment programs? Anybody like to take that one?
I'm happy to start.
Thank you,
Lara. I think
Lara.
one of the things that is incredibly important in this work is to never assume that people's personal understanding or personal definition of disability is broad enough. So I think there's a really important education piece to show how all-encompassing this is, and thinking about what Danielle said before, and also Vineeta, at 1 billion people, this segment is the world's largest minority group, and they will make up 15% of your current employee base, candidates who are speaking to you today. And so I think just bringing it to life with facts and numbers, and I also think leading with the commercial benefits is incredibly important. The other thing I would say is never underestimating storytelling around lived experience as a really, really important way of unlocking for people, and allowing leadership to get unstuck around this topic, because sometimes people's lack of understanding or lack of knowledge can cause them to want to stay still. And so inviting leaders in to this work is incredibly important.
Thank you, Lara. I think that's the point about the world's largest minority group is very well made, and I think we've already seen just how important storytelling is. Anyone else want to come in with any tips on getting senior buy-in?
Yeah, I think
Okay. Sorry. Let us
Go on, Reno, you go. Then I'll
you
come to
first.
Vineeta.
Ladies first. You first. It's okay.
Okay.
So a couple of ideas here. I think we need to really showcase people who've been making a difference in the organization. I think showing the positive role models gives a huge boost. And I'm not talking about any financial measures here. A simple pat on the back, or by showcasing the impact that team would have created by hiring more people with disability. I think those kind of stories needs to come out more often. So that's one. Second, I clearly agree with Lara that we need to position the business case very strongly. And the more facts, the more examples and stories we can create there, that will create a far more buy-in in the leadership team. The good part is leadership has already started understanding the importance of having disability inclusion. So to a larger extent, that war has already been won. But yeah, I still understand there are a couple of pockets wherein we may struggle. And I think some of these things, softer aspects, and not very really hard measures to start with, softer aspects, a soft push, more positive strokes would really help get the buy-in from the leadership team.
And I guess aligned with that, also focusing on where you have got people who are interested, engaged, and where you can start to make some progress, and then hopefully the others will follow where they lead. Renu, what do you think?
Yeah, to get the buy-in from the leadership team, I think, we have a philosophy, the idea and philosophy, but to get the buy-in, why is it important for us to start, get hired people with disability? Is that agree with you? First is business case, why we have to do that, and also we have to show them as well the academic literature that now a lot of talking about how is it important and the impact when we are, recruit people with disability into the workplace. Some research said that it will increase not only your company reputation, but also it will make your business better than before, because our customer and consumer also see that, oh, you are a very inclusive organization. So it builds trust to our customers as well on that point, on that matter. So I think by showing them the fact or examples from maybe academic literature or maybe some kind of research, they will get get to know better about the important things of the inclusions, and also they start to think, yeah, I think this is the right decisions that we decide to start build inclusive workplace. I think that's my additional point on that one.
Thank you, Renu. And that customer piece and customers making choices that are values led and around inclusion, that has got to be a good thing, and hopefully that will also continue to drive change. Danielle, there's a very specific question for you. If you want to say anything more on that one as well, please do. But the specific one is that your video mentioned a 60-day internship. Can you tell us a bit more about what happens to the interns post-program since the launch?
Yes. So after this, the 60-day apprenticeship or internship, as we call it, is more of an open interview period. It's time for the employee to get used to the work environment, build those natural supports amongst their teams. It's also time for the manager to build that natural support, educate, bring awareness around their own team, and kind of work through that job. So it's a working interview period. Now, let's say, because this is individualized, like all other employees, they may need more time because a lot of our colleagues start off as part-time. We can extend that period of time. We check in with the manager, the employee, the job coach, pretty much everybody to see, like, is there anything that we could be doing better? Is there something that you need to do to perform the job that you're doing? Are you still motivated? Do you still want to be here? We've had, after the 60-day period, or if we extended, the candidate then gets to choose, do they want to work for JPMorgan? We've had some candidates that are like, yes, great, this is what I want to do. Family agrees. We had some candidates like, this was great, but like, I want to go do something else. And that's perfectly fine. They got the experience, they got the time, and they also got to see, is this something I wanted to do or not? So right now I have upwards of a 75-80% conversion rate with individuals converting. We had no attrition then, but I've had 2 people leave. One for a mobility opportunity that was closer to his home, so that is not a loss for me. And he was able to interview and get that position on his own. And then we've kept, everyone has stayed. So we have, I think we had people start in 2019. They're still with us to this day. They've advanced in what their initial role was. And we've had some mobility opportunities. So we've seen differences amongst each individual. A lot of the individuals are now public speaking. Some of them are doing panels and educating other employees about their experiences and what this means to them. We have some colleagues that they just want to come in and do their job every day. And we're able to do that as well. And they have also advanced in their capabilities. I think something that we grossly underestimated the talent and skills. We hired in for one thing, and then what we got was far beyond what we expected. And so everyone has kind of grown and expanded out from that, from our business processes, who we're helping, what we're helping on, and then the colleagues' careers, dreams, and aspirations, what they actually want to do and where they want to go in the company. So the apprenticeship is that intro period. We always want to convert. The goal is to get you to a direct hire position, but the employee also has the chance to choose if this is for them or if it's not a good fit. In some instances, let's say our first job match just wasn't a good fit. Everybody thought it just wasn't a good fit. What we've been able to do, because we were able to see that working interview, is then find a good fit. We know where that good fit would be. And we've had extreme success in doing that. They may have started out in one position. Once we move into another team in another position, it's like, there's the glove, and then they're able to gain the employment. So it's been a great journey thus far. I have no complaints at all. But it does take a lot of time and patience to make sure that, we're doing this right and for each individual.
That's a brilliant rate though, 75 to 80% conversion. That's fantastic. And also that you are willing to give people and able to give people an opportunity to try a different role in a different team that might suit them better. That's great to hear. There's a couple of questions on training. So I'll read them both out and then get your thoughts. So the first one, I'm going to say this is a pro training question. So what percentage of your success with normalization and culture change was down to the impact of training? The second one, which is probably about the limitations of training, says quite often research shows standalone inclusion training doesn't have an impact in day-to-day. So what are your thoughts on the role and impact of training in doing what you were doing? Anybody want to come on that?
I can start. I do not have a percentage. I'll just tell you from experience, standalone does not work. I can absolutely agree with that. It cannot be a, hey, here's a course, go do this. This has to be something that is ongoing. This has to be something that is embedded. This has to be something that is not just during Disability Inclusion Month, not just during Autism Awareness Month. It has to be ongoing every day. And I think something with having the Office of Disability Inclusion is we're always looking for content and education and providing knowledge to our employees. And that is something that they can go seek out on their own, or we're going to push it to you. And you can make that decision if you want to take it or not. I think something that has been absolutely beneficial is our business resource groups, and our accessibility group specifically, where we have 23,000 members plus globally. That alone, the chapters are pushing out their own experiences and their own education as well. And we partner with them from the firm standpoint, as well as the BRGs that are employee-led, to make sure that we're educating and providing that education across the firm. So definitely, standalone courses, they do not work. It has to be something that is ongoing, daily, regularly, and also something that's of benefit. Doesn't feel like it's being forced. And that's when I talk about that culture. And it's something that's just embedded in our culture. You know, if you come to JPMorgan, this is what you're getting. This is what you're stepping into. Do you want it or not? And so that is something that I definitely wholeheartedly agree with, is just pushing out the education. And what we've learned is, like Lara said, do not depend on people's own perceptions and their current knowledge to think they know. Because for the most part, a lot of people do not know. And when they get the education, that is where we see the light bulbs. That is where we see the, oh, I can relate to this. I have a mother, a sister, a brother, a cousin. And that is where we see that shift in the culture.
Which is back to storytelling as well, isn't it? And bringing it,
yes,
bringing it to life. And I also liked what you said about there has to be something in it, sort of the training and the awareness for people. I heard somebody yesterday say that meaningful change around culture has to be a movement, not a mandate, which I really liked and probably wrote down. Anybody else want to come in on that? Views on training?
So, Diane, I completely agree that, and I 100% agree that standalone training programs will not help. But training programs are also an important vehicle to drive awareness, to create that sensitization, to create that buy-in. But yeah, what we as an organizations need to understand is people are looking for day-to-day experiences. They are looking to see, values being depicted and actioned and demonstrated by everybody in the organization while they're interacting or working, or for that matter, even when they're not interacting, are they experiencing that kind of environment in the organization? So it has to be demonstrated in actions. And I completely agree, ERGs or business groups, and then people really come forward. That's the right way of driving it, because people really own the agenda. They demonstrate that in action. And somewhere I heard that if you really want to create that sea change, you have to start creating ripples first. And through the ERGs, I think the ripples are huge, and that makes a lot of difference. We've seen it ourselves at EVA India. But yeah, standalone programs, I don't think so on any context, not just disability inclusion, be it business, be it quality. You pick up any aspect of business, and standalone programs will never work. So that's what I believe.
Thank you very much, Vineeta. I think everybody is very much agreeing with this. Any further thoughts, or I'll pick another question from the Slido? No? Okay. So, how does your organisation find disabled talent, which we've alluded to earlier, and how do you make sure they sustain and progress as opposed to being just a tick box exercise? So, Lara, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in that question, I think.
I
think the finding piece is a critical one, and the success I've seen at HSBC is about going out and seeking multiple partners for this work. I think as well, going back to the top of the conversation about looking at the BAU recruitment processes and making sure your front door for recruitment activity is wide open is incredibly important. And you said often it's just little things. It will be things like asking about reasonable adjustments at the top of your process. A piece that my team are working on is about the shift of comments about inclusiveness and reasonable adjustments from the very bottom of the job description, where they often get buried, to the very top. So it's incredibly clear right from the get-go that this is important to you as an organisation and it's reasonable for people to ask. So I think unlocking that is incredibly key. I think the sustaining point is a big piece around identification. So I think it's about being able to maintain long-term relationships with people, and Caroline mentioned to be able to leverage organizational tools like sentiment surveys to make sure that you are staying in conversation with employees at scale. And I think it is taking that long-term view. Often recruitment sometimes can be a little Groundhog Day, you know, you make a placement and an offer and you go back to the start of the cycle and start again. And I think recruitment is much more the start of the full employee life cycle. So I think asking that bigger question, thinking in that way, and also making sure that your counterparts who are in other parts of experience are all connected in with what you're trying to achieve. I think all of those things will help.
Thank you, Lara. Anyone else want to come in on either pipeline or progression?
Yeah, I think from our case in CCEP, when we want to recruit disabled people to our, office or workplace, yeah, we are collaborated with government agencies, yeah, to find the best candidates because at that agencies, they train a specific class for contact center capabilities. So when these people already graduated from that class, companies like us also can freely recruit them and then do the selections. I think this is, if this CSR, I don't think so, because yeah, as I said before, CCEP has the philosophy of IDNE, and also if I'm not mistaken, yeah, we are one of the disability confident employers since 2019, because as a company, our goal is to make our workplaces as accessible as possible. We do this by removing barriers that make it impossible or difficult for anyone to be hired, to grow, and also to continue fully, and by recognizing people for the abilities they bring to our company. And I think that's very important. Yeah, because again and again, we have a very ambitious commitment, because our commitment, 10% of the workforce to be represented by people with disabilities by 2030. I think when we have that pledge, when we have that commitment, it's beyond the CSR ticks box. Yeah, I think that's from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Renaud, and thank you for picking up the question that was about going beyond CSR, because so often we see that CSR is sort of doing the right thing, but it's completely separate from what's good to the business. So actually going beyond that is something we started talking a lot about around kind of ESG. So this question made me laugh when I saw it. So somebody said, is anyone working on developing the pathway to leadership and governance for disabled people? If so, how's it going? Any thoughts on that one? I think that in the question itself acknowledges how complex and difficult this is, but I wanted to read it out. So if anybody has any thoughts or comments.
I can comment. I think something good to see is to see people with disabilities who are have self-disclosed and are open about it in those leadership positions. And that is something that we try to do, and that we all know we're not doing the best job at it. And so striving to improve there. I think something that I've learned more is all types of training that we have now around like career mobility and, interviewing and things like that. It's not for everybody, especially if you have a learning disability. So finding those other methods of training that support this community specifically is what we're trying to do now, because we know getting to that next level, advancing sometimes is difficult in a neurotypical situation. So for this, we have to take into consideration what else may be needed in this. And so I definitely think It is difficult, and we're all trying to work through it, but as long as you are working to get there and actively doing it, I think just doing that, just start, because it shouldn't be that there isn't a path for people with disabilities to get to the higher leadership positions.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And there are more questions in the Slido, but I know we've only got 5 minutes left on the panel. And I did want to ask each of you if you had any piece of advice. So we're hoping that people who are listening here today, who are watching here today, will take that away to their own organisation and be inspired to try something similar. So I'd like to ask you all for a piece of advice on starting out. It might be something you've learned, or kind of a where to start top tip. So Lara, I will come to you first.
Sure. Todd Kashdan's written this incredible book called The Art of Insubordination, and he talks in that book, he coins a phrase called principled rebels. And I can say hand on heart, having spent a long time in this sector, disability inclusion is full of principled rebels, people who are out there to change the game. So figure out what you want to do and then go find another principled rebel who's done the same thing and collaborate, because we talked about it at the top of the call, people in this space, and to reference the theme of the conversation today, are better together. And we know that sharing means that we're going to get an even bigger outcome. So yeah, go and hunt out the principled rebels. They will always take your call or reply to your email.
I love that. A principled rebel with a cause. Thank you very much, Lara. Vineeta, can I come to you?
Yeah, sure. I would say meaningful action starts with mindset first. And I think we all really need to understand that disabilities do not limit possibilities. And as allies of disability inclusion, we really need to ensure that even people around us, they understand this too. You know, I was reading this very beautiful article which has come recently, and it highlighted that in fearless organizations, leadership is human-centric, which means it's an organization where people practice empathy. And therefore, each one of us should be empathetic while talking or interacting with colleagues. Encourage people to share ideas, concerns, even make mistakes. And by being authentic, having those authentic conversations and genuinely, showing that care, I think will create an environment where people feel far more confident to come out openly, to ask for any kind of support they need. And by being curious, to really help them out. I think the kind of confidence you'll create in an organization would be immense. So I would say inclusion is a choice that we all have to make every day. Just make it a part of your everyday job. You don't really have to do anything significantly different. Just in your sphere of influence, see what you can do by being more empathetic and inclusive in your way of working.
Thank you, Vineeta. I like that confidence and curiosity, and everyone seeing what they can do to be more inclusive. Thank you. Reno.
Okay, for anyone inspired to make a change in their organizations, my advice would be this. First, understand and embrace the value that PWD can bring to your business. So according to the disability confidence theory in academic studies, companies that recognize these benefits not only boost their own business, but also help change community perceptions. So by creating a positive culture in your workplace, you're also taking a step towards changing broader societal view towards people with disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reno. And last but not least, Danielle.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to also go with the partner and collaboration piece. There are so many game changers in this community and industry, and you can learn so much before you even have to go down that path it may not work. You can find out if it's going to work or not. So I think definitely this is a space that I've learned, regardless if it's one of my fellow competitors, this is not a competition. If I can do it better and I can help someone else do it better than me, that is what we're going to do. So I think collaborating and then just start. I spent probably 5 to 6 months researching, talking, networking, creating that plan before I even did the pilot during the pandemic. And that is what, once we had that under our belt, we knew, okay, we can do this, we can go. So spend that time digging in. Don't try and do this and then go backwards. Spend that time researching, spend that time learning, educating yourself, becoming aware of what unconscious and conscious biases you may have, and throwing them to the window. And that's kind of where I would go with just start. Just go ahead and just start.
Thank you, Danielle. That is a fabulous message to leave us on. And also the importance of partnership and collaboration is the theme of our conference today. So you've been an amazing panel. Thank you so much. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Reno. Thank you, Vineeta. And thank you, Lara, for being wonderful, wonderful panelists. Thank you for joining us.